What's up, everybody? Monkeypuzzle here, and I just finished a video talking about the state of the channel and the format that things have been coming in, the daily content of cut from the streams from Twitch, and the why and what for of all of that. So hopefully you all checked that out and you gave me a bunch of input of what you think about that. And now in this one, I want to go on and talk about the actual games that I want to be playing from. Well, this is not set in stone, but the games that you may see in the future here. All right. Origin is not important. We got all these different launchers nowadays. Although I don't really mind because I'm used to just having executables that you could play, and I came from before the day of launchers, and I never was that attached to Steam, but now you can see I'm pretty well invested in it. I only got Origin up because of Sims 4. This used to be my jam right here, SimCity. That's one of the ones that came up on Sims, and SimCity were before my channel were a lot of my jam, like I was saying. But anyway, I'm going to put this away because it's not as important, but I was thinking about the possibility of Sims 4 as a building game, but that's not the one to lead with. The one to lead with is probably over here, the Epic launcher. I just finished Outer Worlds, and you won't see that for a bunch more episodes. I put 47 hours into it. I finished it on Twitch 2 nights ago. Absolutely loved the game. Had great fun with it. I'm kind of sad it's just done when it's done, but so be it. I completed another game, and now I could move on to another one. And I'm about to have a bunch of time off. December and January, I don't work nearly as hard as I do in the rest of the year, the way my work is seasonal. And some of that's going to be actual vacation time. So I've got some time and want to figure out what I'm going to really buckle down on with my gaming side during that time. So this is done. This is pretty much done for now, too. Arali and I just tore through the main story and all the side missions, too, in co-op mode. I had great fun. I miss my regular weekly gaming with him doing that. We'll have to find another one that we can co-op together like that again. But until some DLC comes out for it, right now we're pretty much just farming bosses and trying to improve the legendary guns we have. And there's been some seasonal content like the Bloody Harvest thing, but hopefully the DLCs are around the corner soon, and then there'll be more of that. But this is pretty much done too, and so I'm just getting a long backlog of episodes up at a reasonable pace over on YouTube. Before that, I was dabbling in both of these. We've got Satisfactory, which is a really fun game, sandboxy factory game. When I was streaming this directly to YouTube, I got to the point of finishing all the content that was in it at that point. There have been several major updates since then, and folks should let me know if they're interested in seeing more Satisfactory. It's not for everybody, but it is a very well done game for what it does. The one thing I didn't finish, though, is I didn't do all the exploration. I didn't get around the whole map because the map was big. So, yeah, didn't do that, but I did use all the factories and things they had at that point. There's a lot more now. So that's something I would definitely like to get back to at some point. I also put in a little time in Ancestors. I got through the basic phase, and I did a few edited episodes showing people how to do some of the basics. And then I did some streams. I did not finish it, and I feel kind of bad for that because I really want to support what they did with this game. I had a few critiques that kept me from finishing. The main one being that as you go along, you have more and more interactions with predators. But rather than being your basic kind of combat mechanic with that, you have these little cutscenes, and you have this little moment in time, this window of time to press the right combo of keys in the right direction. And if you do, you succeed in that combat. If you don't, you don't succeed. And that wasn't that hard once I figured it out. Once I figured out the little audio cue you're supposed to listen to get the timing right, but it seemed really limited to have a mechanic that important as combat be just a little cutscene triggered by a key combo. And also the movement, maybe it's better on the controller, but with keyboard and mouse, the movement around was kind of awkward. So, yeah. Anyway, I like the game. I'd like to see where it goes. I have not spoiled myself by watching people play further than me, But yeah, that's another one I have not finished. So finished, not finished. And then there's a bunch of free games Epic keeps giving you. I'm not getting into the whole discussion right now of Epic versus Steam and stuff like that. That's something we could talk about in the stream. But here you can see in yet another new launcher, I have bought Red Dead Redemption 2 for PC, and I've played a little bit of it, not that much. I've gotten through like the first few story missions, and I just got to the point where you get to the camp and then you have more agency to be sandboxy about it. And I like it a lot. This could potentially be one that I take a deep dive into now. Whatever I do next, I definitely want to take a deep dive into it, and if not finish it, at least be putting out regular content on it. So it's not just like a 1-off or a 2-off or a 3-off, unless that's as far as we get when we decide not. There are some issues with this. There are crashes. I have not encountered them yet, but my son, who's been playing behind me, and he's put like 4 days straight into the game now, he is having more and more crashes, and it's not completely unplayable, but it seems pretty frustrating. So it seems like maybe if I wait a little bit on that, they'll patch it some more, or we could just jump into it and see if I can go through, and I don't have a problem with it myself. It's kind of hit or miss whether people have those issues or not with it. You know, my computer's running it all right. I can't run it on max graphics, but it's a gorgeous game. There is a lot of gray moral choices you got to make in it, but you can be a good cowboy and kill fewer people, or you can, obviously you're going to be killing people in there. So, you just got to, I guess, got to accept that at this point in these games. But yeah, it's definitely a tour de force of this kind of game at this point. Probably one of the prettiest open worlds out there at this point. I know that's a controversial statement. So anyway, there's that. So getting down to Steam, here are, I had a little fun categorizing just before I did this. I've never used categories before on here. I always had my long list of games, but here I made a category called mainstays. These are the main games I've been playing on the channel in recent years because I love the sandbox survival buildy open world kind of games. And Ark, for all its faults, I feel like was one of the best sandboxes out there for that kind of thing. It has issues. At this point, I've put 4,190 hours into it, quite a bit, and I did all kinds of building in there. I wasn't as oriented towards PvP or to boss fights and that kind of thing. They didn't interest me as much as finding a pretty spot, getting some taming animals, getting some utility animals, grinding out a bunch of materials, and really occupying the place. Like it's all my real estate, and you can find a beautiful waterfall and build something to complement it, or on and on and on, make an awesome tree house and all this other kind of thing. So I love that part about it. But at this point, 4,000 hours, I really want to play a lot of these other games in my library and all these games that keep coming out. And also, what disappointed me is I was hoping that when they got to the end of their last run of DLC, they had Scorched Earth, they had Aberration, they had Extinction. I played through all of those, and then I was like, okay, hopefully you guys are now going to take a moment and work on your base code and use that to build your next game, right? Because there was a lot of it in the beginning that was done. You could tell it was done sort of hurriedly. There's parts about being the player in there that just feel awkward, that are just not smooth. And the animations of the creatures are beautiful, but the player is really lacking in a lot of ways. And the way collision works in the game, the way you get stuck on things and your teams get stuck on things on each other, and hit registration and a whole number of other little annoying little bugs. I was hoping that they could go back to and make that better and then build on that. But now they've announced Genesis, which a lot of people are hyped about. I don't want to take away from that, but it's more of kind of just holding on to their assets they already have and adding more assets on top of that, rather than going back to the base level work that I feel like they really need to do to make these games last and be more future proofed and keep people like me, veterans in them like me, playing them. Also at this point, these are really grindy games, and yeah, on our private servers, we could turn up harvest even more than we do. It doesn't feel right though, but there's so much work you got to do into harvesting the trees and the rocks, and the metal and the crystal and the element and everything else that I always valued that. All the builds I ever did in here were all in survival. I never did a creative build once where I just had limitless materials and can fly around. But at this point, I am feeling like I've burned out on the grind, the material grind. I'm sure there are games I'll get into. I'll be doing that again. I definitely will play Genesis when it comes out because I sort of have to. There's no way I can't with the whole history of my channel and the community I'm part of. But I have played some other games since, and I really appreciate how you can just move through them in a way that it's hard to do with this. It's a lot of work, and that definitely creates a lot of playtime for it. But anyway, I'm going in this long explanation just for people who really want to see me play more Arc and what is stopping me from doing that at this point. So at the very least right now, I'm taking a break until Genesis comes out. It was going to come out in December, but they delayed it to 2020 sometime. We don't know when. And then Atlas, I put 1,000 hours into and loved it. It's really fun. I really love the whole ship mechanic and everything like that. But everything I said about Arc just now still applies to Atlas because they just threw these new assets on the same base code as Arc. Pretty much exactly the same. The only thing that was different is how the multi-grid servers run. And after our time in official PvP, which we made a good try at, but realized we just didn't have the time in our lives to be able to get up at 3 a.m. whenever there was a raid. People were destroying your ships when you were trying to sleep. It takes a big commitment in that kind of thing. And our clan, even though it started big enough to handle that, because of a lot of the issues with the game and the grind and everything else, a lot of people dropped out pretty quick, and we were down to sort of a skeleton crew trying to maintain that. Anyway, that was the PvP experience, but we started our own private server. Raleigh did most of the work for that and made a 3x3 grid. That has had to be wiped 3 times now because it's an early access. And because of the way those kind of multi-grid server works, one, it's very hard to make a full backup in a way that you can just restore all the characters. You can restore the structures, but the character data is in this other database that you can't quite copy exactly. It's a long technical discussion, but either because of that or because of just changes they've made along the way, we had to wipe it 3 times, and the grind is too much in this for people to become invested. So pretty much at the last wipe of the 3x3, everybody was just pretty much backed off of it. We didn't put another one back up because everybody was like, okay, let's just wait for them to get through the early access till we know the multi-grid servers will be stable. We still have the Blackwood server, which is like a single grid server, which is a lot more like the Arc ones are. But there's a lot of issues with that one. It's cool, but there's places in the ocean you'll just fall to the bottom and there's no water there, even though the water is there. And there's all kinds of other little examples like that. There's also, I think the game is poorly balanced for the player. A lot of emphasis is taken off of teams and onto the player to defend themselves. And there's these Power Stone Islands that you have to get to progress through a lot of the story content. But they're so hard, and they have these creatures that have levels in 3-digit levels, and you don't have the armaments to be able to defend yourself properly. And if you bring any tames, they'll get killed immediately. There's like all these super OP mythical creatures there, and you end up just having to do naked death runs through these story islands to try to run through and not get killed to get your stuff, because there's no point in running through with gear half the time because you're going to lose it. Some people manage to get good at getting through that. I didn't quite get the knack for it. It takes you like 5 seconds to load your gun each time. Maybe I should have got it more into 2-handed melee. I don't know, but got kind of frustrated with that too. Okay, so anyway, that is the take on Atlas and Arc at this point and why I'm taking a break from them. I love the building in them. and the whole survival, the agency they gave you in the sandbox. Really appreciate that. I hope they develop that more. And I hope to see a lot more games like that. It's a tough genre to do. It's easy for them to have a lot of bugs in this kind of thing. I get that, because it's very ambitious. Hopefully more developers will have that kind of ambition, or these guys will have the ambition to build on their base code, or to redo it and to make their game run more smoothly and stronger and balance better. Okay, I could talk more about them. But the last thing I'm going to add to that is just that my favorite thing in them was building, but even the building mechanic in them is very clumsy and you're fighting it all the time. I don't know how many videos where people saw me struggling with these quivering snap points going all over the place, placing things wrong down 6 times until it finally placed right the 7th time. That was part of the game with building in those. The pieces are really limited that you can do unless you get really into all the different mods that add pieces. And there's a lot of great modders who have added a lot of content that really made it richer. But if you're into a building game, they're really not the best building game. I don't know what the best building game is, but I don't feel like they put enough love into it in this one. Atlas was better, if not more limited than Arc. Atlas was a much smoother building system, although when they made it smoother, you also lost a lot of the quirks that allowed you to do tricky things over in Arc. Anyway, enough talk about those. Not done with them forever, but definitely taking a break for now, and want to get through this whole library of other things. Not that we're going to play all these, but in this category here, I've put games to record. So these are some I thought we could do next. This one is just a fun, fast little game. This is not a big commitment, but this is something that, as a contrast to some of the more violent games I've been playing lately, this one, there's absolutely no combat. It's just lusciously beautiful. It's not a very long game. I haven't played it yet, but I've seen some stuff about it that makes me really intrigued. So we'll probably do a quick playthrough of Eastshade, just for something that's beautiful and luscious and peaceful, and quick. So, but the main two I'm thinking about next, and you guys let me know what you think about this, for the long stream playthrough of the story game, I'm thinking about doing The Witcher 3. I've got the Game of the Year thing with all the DLC. I know I'm late playing it. Right now, it's kind of between this for me and Red Dead Redemption, unless other folks have another idea of what they'd like to see me play. But there's been a lot of good things said about The Witcher, and everybody's really looking forward to Cyberpunk coming up in 2020. I thought this might be a good way to prepare for that, to see what CD Projekt Red has done and what everybody has been praising them about. And it just seems like it'd be a good, fun story game. I know it's not perfect. I know there's clumsy parts about the combat and stuff like that, but it seemed like it would be a cool game just to plow through over on Twitch and then put in the same sort of 30-minute segments like I'm doing with those other games. Now, the question is, that will start coming on top of those other two. Is that going to just be too much? I don't know how to do it without that. And then as far as the building games go, as far as, the kind of building and creation that people really have come to my channel for, I'm thinking about Planet Zoo. Now, there's things I'm disappointed about in this game, but there's things that are really cool as far as terraforming and building and terrain shaping and stuff like that. It really offers a lot. The building system in here is pretty intense, and there's a lot of crafting capability that you can do in here. Like, you can build buildings by piece, totally custom, and you can shape land and environments in ways that you can't do in some of those other games. Now, zoos kind of suck. They're basically prisons for animals. And if I did this, I would definitely try to make the best enclosures for them. I like zoos in real life, although they make me kind of sad in some ways too. But I definitely have been a patron of many of them. And if I did this, I'd try to make the best habitats possible. And then, with extinction and conservation and everything happening, sometimes zoos are the way that a lot of these things are going to stick around. So I think they did a really good job with the building and stuff. I've been watching some build videos people do on it. And I think even if it's not a long-term thing, I could have some short-term fun trying to make some amazing creations in here. What I'm disappointed about in the game is that the people and some of the tutorial aspects and stuff are very cartoony, and the music is very simish in some ways. So I'd have a hard time putting up with that. But the animals themselves, if not hyper realistic, are pretty realistic enough to be satisfying. And you got to do some work to make the habitats a little less bland, but there's tons of plants and stuff you can put down in them. So yeah, we could do some really interesting things. You can work on 3 dimensions and have tunnels and bridges and trains and all kinds of things. So it could be some, there's some stuff to bite on in there as far as building and creation goes. So you all tell me what you think. If you know of a game that's a better building game than that you'd like to see me play, let me know and I'll consider it. The game I want would be like an ecosystem building game where you could go into these vast open lands that already exist and are beautiful, and then you can go in and terraform and build and, have things grow on their own and stuff like that. But that game doesn't exist yet, as far as I know. But yeah, so that's what I'm thinking about. Potential other things coming that I could do. These would be potential long form games. Watch Dogs Legion is coming out next year. I like Watch Dogs. I've played, only 13 hours of this. I felt like I played more, but it's pretty cool. It's got its limits, but it's a neat another open world thing. It's set in the area that I grew up in, the San Francisco Bay Area, and I think they did a pretty good job of it too. I get pretty nostalgic looking at a lot of the different places. I think they did. They really got the heart of those. They're not as big as those areas are, of course, in real life, but they really got some of the essence of them. And it's some neat game mechanics. You can play it pretty non-violently if you want to. And I don't know. I'd like to check it out. There's another RPG here that I started in that's really good, Kingdom Come Deliverance. I'm late on that as well. All these games I'm late on, but I don't care. I would just play them because I want to. And people could watch me do them in my style. But that's a potential one. And then Destiny 2 and Warframe are 2 of the outstanding FPS games right now that I could get into. I've dabbled a little bit more in Warframe than Destiny, but those are 2 potential ones as well. And then some other ones in here. I thought about Raft for a while. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't even put it in here. It's got some cool crafting survival elements. It might be too simple and too much time just picking up trash, but I still wanted to kind of delve into that a little bit. This one I adore, Oxygen Not Included. I played 113 hours of it so far. It's pretty intense and it's pretty hard. My colonies died of heat by the end, or I couldn't figure out how to deal with heat properly. That's something I'll need to conquer in there. And they've put a lot into that since I've played it. It's finished now, apparently. Not that any game is ever really finished, but that would be a fun one to get into. This is a long, super survival one. Very detailed, gritty survival that I haven't played either. I haven't spoiled for myself. Be interesting to check that out. Factorio, another really intense factory building. It's all 2D with sprites, but it's really neat. I could definitely have a fun playthrough of that, but I don't know if people would have the patience for it or not. And there's some more Borderlands stuff I haven't played yet either. There's the pre-sequel, and then also on actual disc, I've got Tales from the Borderlands, because Telltale Games went out of business and you can't download it digitally, but you can still get a physical copy of it. So I've got Tales from the Borderlands I could play too, if people aren't tired of Borderlands at this point. And this is also one I wanted to check out as well. And then potential short games. I got a free copy of Breath Edge I haven't played yet. It's unfinished, but there's some wacky, dark humor, space stuff in there that we could have, good couple dozen hours of fun with probably. Flow Space is a really simple little game, but it's a fun way to create little terrains and environments, which you can do really quickly, actually. We could just do a little half-hour showcase of this. I've just started playing with it. These 2 games would be like having a game of chess with you guys. We wouldn't have to do long-term playthroughs of these, but every once in a while I could stream like Into the Breach for a few hours or FTL. Both of these, made by the same developer, are really fun that way. And these are 2 I've been saving for a potential stream at sometime, The Room or The Room 2. Yeah, so let me know what you think. Let me see what else here. Oh, Unfinished Series. These are 3 really good games that I started and never finished on the channel. So if folks put a big pitch for these, I could potentially do that. No Man's Sky would be a pretty big investment of time. I've played 282 hours of it already. But as far as sandboxy building games go, this is like one of the next best things out there at this point for that. And they have done a lot of updates that I haven't checked out yet. Like, I did not check out the Beyond update, and I don't think I checked out the one before that where they put in all the ocean stuff. So I did a good go at it. I got a little tired of lasering rocks at a certain point, and the world seemed a little empty to me. Felt a little lonely there, not for lack of other people, but just the worlds didn't quite feel legit to me. Apparently they've worked on both of those things. It's easier to harvest now. You can carry more. It's faster. And apparently there's more detail and breadth to the worlds. So that would be something that might be interesting to check out again or not. And then back to here. I put 2 good episodes in the Anno, and I really liked that kind of game. I didn't finish it. I'd have to get back into it again to get the hang of it, but I would be interested in some playthroughs of those. These are definitely more of short-term investment of time. You can put a lot of time into a world, but you advance to end game before you know it, and get your butt kicked by the AI unless you manage to survive. And then Subnautica is an awesome game that I made a good start into. I did a bunch of streams directly to YouTube with. And then I never finished. I think a lot of these is because if I didn't finish, it's because something else came up. All of a sudden, there was a new DLC for Ark I had to play. Or I think Subnautica, I got a little intimidated streaming it because streaming it to YouTube, I felt like I had to get to the story and the content real quick. And the kind of exploration this game has, I couldn't guarantee I'd find everything every time. I'd get lost in the worlds, lose my sense of direction and so on. But it's a really great game. I'd really like to finish it at some point. So that's something that's there as a possibility as well. And then let's see this category. These are things I've streamed to Twitch. I think we already talked about that already. I went all the way through Borderlands 1, Borderlands 2, and Borderlands 3 at this point. I made a good inroads into Skyrim. I never finished that. It'd be something I'd be interested in going back to at some point, especially if Elder Scrolls 6 ever comes out. Hopefully Bethesda does that well and doesn't become the PR disaster that Fallout 76 did. And that was another game I had a lot of hope for, but I didn't even have it up here at this moment. That's another launcher, right? But at this point, that whole opinion around that game and Bethesda is crashing and burning, and they're doing some kind of sketchy things. I was a defender of a lot of the other criticisms about them, but they keep just messing up. So yeah, it's too bad. But yeah, I did a full Fallout 4 playthrough over on Twitch as well. And then, of course, I've got all these other ones I didn't throw into a category, and there's more games coming out all the time. This is a great use of the new format of the Twitch library now. I'm not a big fan of lots of big pictures, but I can scroll through here and maybe you guys will see something that interests you and you'll be like, hey, play that one. And just last real quick, this is just a little list I have over in Google Docs. I'm used to help keep track of myself of games that are coming out and when we might expect to see them. Ones that just, piqued my interest. And a lot of these I've already talked about. Star Wars Jedi The Fallen Order is coming out in a few days. Also not a kind of game I've normally played on the channel, but it does look interesting. I wouldn't mind playing that. So if that's something folks want to see, that's a real possibility. I'm actually really interested in Death Stranding. A lot of the game mechanics are actually really appealing to me. I know it's not for everybody, but for me, I think some of that might be really cool, but I don't have a PlayStation and I can't afford to buy one just for that. It's coming out to PC sometime next year, early summer. So when that comes out, I'd definitely like to check that out. Arc Genesis Part 1 is coming out sometime next year. We don't know when. We talked about Watch Dogs Legion. I definitely want to play that. Raleigh is really interested in The Last of Us. That's just going to be on PlayStation 2, which I probably still won't be able to afford to buy at that point. And zombie games aren't really my thing, even though I have played Fallout 76, although technically they're not zombies, they're mutants. But the Wastelanders DLC is coming out in Q1, which I was excited about. I'm less now with a lot of developments of how scummy Bethesda's being, but that's still on this list. Cyberpunk 2077 is probably the one I'm most excited about here. This and Watch Dogs Legions, really. I'm excited about both of those. And then heard tell of some other games I don't know much about, Elden Ring and Skull and Bones, that also I thought could be pretty interesting. Anyway, I've talked about a lot of games. Hopefully that was an interesting discussion for you. Gives you guys a chance to have some input on what's coming up. I mean, ultimately, I got to play what's fun for me, but I just wanted to share some of my thinking in case you're like, oh, he's just playing those kind of games, or he's not going to play that kind of game anymore. Why I'm switching up a little bit on some of my mainstay games, but at the same time, I'm looking for more games like that, or willing to go back to those when more comes out on those, when they've done some more development on them, like when Atlas progresses a bit, so it's not so early access. And we'll definitely check out Arc Genesis, but again, I'd like to see that developer, both sides of it, go back and do their homework a little bit more. And I am really branching out more into the first-person RPG or FPS kind of games too, something I never touched on here, but I'm finding those fun for me. And there's a ton of other games out there. There's some that, building games I want to get into. I want to find more sandbox building games that are cool. Hopefully more of that kind of stuff's going to come out. And there's ones I didn't mention here you think would be cool. Definitely let me know. But in interest of not going on forever and ever, I'm going to leave it at that. Hopefully I touched on all the things I was wanting to touch on. I'll remember when I'm editing. But anyway, if you made it to the end of this channel update and discussion about upcoming games, thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the upcoming playthroughs of those. Please give me your input about them. Let me know what you'd like to see, what you're excited about, and any other suggestions or comments you may have. This has been Monkeypuzzle. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.